Welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, where if you're listening, we appreciate you. But if not, you're not missing anything. I'm Jack, and with me are Joe and Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Hello.
Wait a minute. Hello.
There we go. And we're going to talk about Shang-Chi.
And the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Thank you. Thank you for finishing that for me.
They're very legendary.
This is the 25th MCU film, second in Marvel Phase 4, and also the second post the blip, or, post the 5-year gap from Infinity War and Endgame. So at the end of Endgame, obviously everybody came back. Since then, we've had Spider-Man Far From Home, which takes place after, and now this. So we're continuing post the blip and seeing how people have recovered. We've seen a bit of that in the Disney Plus shows like WandaVision and all that. And now we have our second film post blip, and again, our second film in Marvel Phase 4, which the first being Black Widow.
Although Black Widow really doesn't count. I mean, technically it's Phase 4, but
it doesn't count. But I mean, it's officially it is in Phase 4, so we're just going to call it that.
Yeah,
it's kind of that weird position of here we're going to go back and do this prequel sort of that's in the middle of a series that we've been making.
Right. Yep. But once Marvel found out that Wonder Woman did so well, they're like, hey, we should do a female-led superhero film too, and they did. So there you go. But now, obviously, Scarlett isn't as happy about that since she's not getting all of her money since it went to Disney Plus.
Yep, which Shang-Chi did not, right? Shang-Chi
did not. Yep,
film
that's just theaters only, and I'm thinking they're going to continue to do that because of all this stuff that's been happening with Black Widow. So,
I was about to say they learned their mistake.
Yes, they did.
Can't get rid of too much of that precious money.
Exactly.
Either only do theatrical releases, or people are going to start redoing their contracts and saying, hey, if you're doing a dual release, cut us in on both ends of this deal.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's like,
I'm sorry, we can't hear you over all of this box office revenue.
It's like you can't. You can't really blame Scarlett Johansson for being upset, because originally it wasn't just going to be in theaters, and she was promised to get a cut of that. But if they release it on home media as well at the same time, then she's not going to get as much of a cut as she would have originally. So you can get why someone as rich as her would be upset they're not making even more money.
The funniest thing about this is the biggest competition Disney had for that movie was themselves,
right?
In terms of box office profit. Welcome to Disney. Well, Disney World, Disney Planet. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. This was directed and co-written by, I believe his name is Destin Daniel Cretton. Or Creton, I don't know what we're going to call him. It could be Crouton, who knows? but
Cretin or Crouton, insult you prefer?
One of the two. So funny enough, his top three films he's done. He's never done a superhero film before. This is his first one. And the other films he's done, he did one called Short Term 12. Another one he did with Michael B. Jordan called Just Mercy, which was like a film about a convict who was wrongfully accused of a murder or something like that. Alrighty. So generally, give us your thoughts, gents.
I would say definitely upper quarter of Marvel movies. I don't know. You said this is the 25th, right?
Yep, the 25th Marvel film.
I don't know if I could say it's top 5 yet. I would need to go back through, but I would definitely say it's in the upper portion overall. I would say a solid 8.5 out of 10.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty close. I'd say, if we're going number-wise, I'd have to go with 7 out of 10. Again, that's not saying it's like, yes, it was not as good as such and such. Honestly, it kind of felt like its own film that just happened to have some Marvel connections. And, like, even if you take out those little, other than one really big one, other than if you, like, take out all those connections, it stands alone as its own film with its own themes and stuff, its own, brilliant action stuff and choreography and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
really, I gotta say, that's 7 out of 10 for like a regular movie, and for the little Marvel tidbits thrown in, that's 7.5. It's definitely up there. I actually had fun considering I went in with no expectations. Not, I didn't think it was going to be bad or anything, but it's just like, okay, Marvel Jam, let's go. Why not? I I expect this. I expect this microwave dinner, and that actually makes it sound like it's bad. There's nothing wrong with microwave dinners, but it's like, I expect this. If it's got a little extra flair in there, that's pretty good. It had a lot of extra flair. I liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. With I mean, a lot of pretty much. I think we're all on the same page. Pretty much this film. Didn't know anything about him going in. I looked up a few things ahead of time, but I knew barely anything about the character. So just going in, just hoping to be entertained by another Marvel film, as most have, and was pleasantly liked it more than I thought I would. I mean, I thought it was going to be good. I thought it was really good. Loved the characters. I thought they were a lot of fun. You had Simu Liu. We're going to get a lot of names wrong probably when it comes to pronunciation in this episode. But I never seen him in anything, but I thought he was very good as the lead. He definitely played the role of Shang-Chi very well. I thought Aquafina was very funny as his friend Katie. I thought they had great chemistry. Good, like, platonic friendship. You don't get that a lot with guys and girls. I mean, in films, especially in Marvel films, it's usually, if there's a girl there, it's usually a romantic interest. While that could turn into a thing with Aquafina and Shang-Chi, if it doesn't, it would still work just fine. Yeah. So I thought they worked together very well. I was talking to a friend about it this morning. The fight choreography. I mean, especially those earlier scenes. Like, there's two scenes in particular I'm thinking of. Again, not going to spoilers, but there were two scenes that had these fights in particular were just like these martial arts skills, and these were the best fight scenes I've seen in a Marvel film probably since Marvel Winter Soldier, since Captain America came out.
That's a big
pretty
bar to clear, honestly. Very.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Although, in fairness, every other film fight scene since then has been a huge particle effects, just a bunch of flashy stuff going on.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier was the last time I can think of. Well, maybe in the Spider-Man movies there was more hand-to-hand kind of combat.
Maybe. I mean, not saying there wasn't, but I'm saying it wasn't as emphasized.
None of the other movies had Russo brother style fighting stuff.
Yeah, even Civil War, I'd say, had some good fighting scenes. It's just they didn't focus on it as much as they did in Winter Soldier. Well, and I feel like
the Civil War fight is like cutting between characters really quick, whereas this one was you're focused on Shang-Chi's character the entire time, like as a centerpiece for the fight that I think that you're talking about. Obviously, we're getting into if it's the fight that I think you're talking about, it was in the trailer. There was a bit of it.
The bus fight, is that what you're talking about?
The bus. That was a very well done fight scene overall. And something we talked about before is there's long cuts of these action pieces as opposed to like super choppy and like where you just cut up a bunch of tiny scenes and splice them together. This was actually like long takes, long cuts, which made it a lot cleaner to watch and made it a lot more enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, exactly, because you could see more. Funny that you could see more of what was going on, and you could really appreciate it more. So it was very cool. It's similar to your classic martial arts films from the '90s and all that. These very long takes, so you can actually see the action and all that, and really appreciate it more. Versus other Marvel films, where again it is more choppy. You have more of those cuts to avoid obviously to avoid them actually getting punched and all that, and using all the stunt people and all of that. Whereas this definitely looked more real, and because of that, was definitely a plus and was very refreshing to see, because we've gotten good fight scenes before, but not like this. So I mean,
but they were missing something.
Yeah, or not even that. It's just different, and so I feel like these. These are some of the best fight scenes in any Marvel film easily, and like I said, best since Winter Soldier, if not better. So that was a huge plus. And we'll get into it more later. But I wish that would have been more. The fight scenes had been more consistent. But those two in particular, I'm thinking of, were fantastic and might have been the best parts of the movie. Honestly, when it comes to scenes, we still had some great characters. I thought. Can't remember the guy's name, but the person who ends up actually playing the Mandarin, the real Mandarin, I thought was very good. Thought he was a solid antagonist. His motives were, he was just.
He was a good.
He had good motives.
He was an antagonist and not just a villain.
Exactly. He wasn't,
that made all the difference, kind of.
Right.
Zhu Wenyu is the character's name. Tony Leung.
Tony Leung, Leung.
Leung, yeah.
Now I can't remember. Was this his first kind of like soiree into like American film? Isn't he big? Isn't he a big Chinese movie star?
Tony Leung?
I might be thinking of somebody else. Yeah.
I'm looking now. I'm not sure.
It was somebody's first. Like they were really big. They're like super popular in China, or well, not in America. And like this was kind of, it was big that they were in this movie, sort of thing. It might have been him. And honestly, if that is the case, I can see why he's so popular. He's really good.
Yeah, no, I thought he was great. One of the better. I mean, it's not saying much. Well, I'm going to take that back. We've actually recently gotten a lot of very good Marvel villains. Like, I mean, we're going Mysterio, I thought was great.
Motivations. Yeah.
Thanos was great. I mean, the last mediocre villain we got that I could think of was one of Black Widow. He was just, an evil old guy. So,
yeah, don't bring that up.
We're kind of verging into spoiler territory, but I wouldn't even really call Zhu Wenyu a villain. Like,
no, he's just his motives. I mean, he's really just. It's kind of hard to talk about. He's just confused and sad.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what's happening, right?
That's as vague as we can get.
That's as vague as we can get.
Yeah.
But he very much did a great job with that character, and I really enjoy the chemistry he had with the other characters.
He's a good job. He does a good job of being the force to be worked against, while not just being the force to be worked against.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's like you don't want to mess with this guy, but you can also see where he's coming from and see where he, could have been a good father.
It's amazing what a little, well, not even like a lot of depth. What a little depth can do to your antagonist. It's great.
Yeah.
Just making them so that they're not a one-dimensional person who only has a single goal and they're going to pursue that goal to the exclusion of all else, but actually giving them like they care about people, and the fact that they care about people means that they're going to have moments of doubt and they're going to make different decisions at different points than what you might have expected because like how these things are tugging on them. Yeah. It's amazing what
and
that
that's
does for
why
character.
I love Malekith and Thor the Dark World. He's the best villain.
Oh my goodness. We don't talk about that.
That's exactly
we don't talk about Thor Dark
World. Thank you for what is it? Thank you for spelling it out so great. I just couldn't think of it until now. He really is the best.
Yeah, sure.
Well, before we get into spoiler territory, I think, unless you guys want to add anything, I think we can pretty safely say, if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. It looked very cool on the big screen, and it's I didn't even give like a point rating. If I was going to do it, I'd say it's probably closer to like 8.25. It's definitely on the higher side of the 8s. It was like, I think on Letterboxd I gave it like a solid 4. It's like, I mean, it's inching. If they had like a 4.25, I'd probably give it that. So it was great. So definitely worth the watch. It was a breath of fresh air for a Marvel film, just because it was, again, different and different enough that it didn't seem like it was falling. While there were some hints of the MCU-isms, some Marvel formula stuff that we've seen before, there was enough that was different that made it a breath of fresh air, and I'd say it was definitely worth a watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So definitely go watch it now. Pause this podcast, go watch the movie, and then come back and listen to our spoiler review.
Or even like, what is it, on a more like deep level, just like. If you're listening to this on the way to see the movie, Like pause it now, and then when you
Boom.
get out and you're driving on the way home, listen to it spoiler-wise. Or you can just listen to our podcast during the movie.
Yep, if you hate your friends, listen to it all now, and then spoil it for them as they're watching the movie.
Yep. They're like, oh, this is the scene where he does, and then this is the scene where he does, and they're just like, would you shut up? Go away.
Yep, if you hate your friends, there you go.
Yep.
We gotta
All right.
sync it up with the
But yeah, we are
This is
now
gonna be more of a
in
challenge than I thought.
spoiler territory, so you've been warned.
That's not.
And
That's
now
it. That's the air horns.
we have the air
Viewers,
horns from
if
Joseph
you're
Bryant.
listening, and I know you might be. I lied.
Thank you, Joseph, for that. I appreciate it. I think they have officially been warned, so if they hear spoilers now and they are upset, it's not our fault. That sounds like a personal problem at that point.
To the one who's like kind of not paying attention, you know who you are. Yeah, I'm going to give you a second to realize that, yeah, we're talking to you. Yeah, spoilers. Yeah,
Boom.
Okay. Now that we've got your attention, we're good.
Hey, Jack, before we talk about that, quick question.
What's up?
So how are we doing this?
What do you mean?
The podcast. How are we making a podcast?
Oh, the podcast. Well, we're actually using this really cool app called Anchor.
Okay. Okay, how does that work? How does Anchor work?
So basically, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place.
Everything. So, I mean, I thought we needed a bunch of different tools, a bunch of different recording tools and the editing software and all that kind of stuff.
Well, see, yeah, normally with other kind of podcast recording equipment, you would, but with Anchor is the tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so sure, I whatever. You got the tools to make the podcast, but then what about when we want to send it out? Don't we have to have a bunch of different places to post it to? Don't you have to have a bunch of different fancy things to do that as well?
Normally, yes, but see, what's kind of cool, another great thing about Anchor is when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, a bunch of the typical place people go to listen.
Okay, so you're saying this lets us make the podcast. It has everything we need to make it, and it lets us distribute it?
It is exactly what I'm saying. It is everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. It's got it all.
I'm assuming that means, it's expensive, right? Like if it's got all these different features, it's got to be pretty expensive to run this thing.
You see, Joe, that's actually the best thing about it. It is totally free. You don't have to pay a thing for it. They do all of this stuff for you. You can edit, distribute, all of that completely free. And all you need to do to get that set up is you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's the Anchor app or anchor.fm.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So I guess if you do all that, then you can make a podcast just as cool as ours. And
well, I don't know if it would be just as cool, but pretty close, probably.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
All right.
So, with spoilers in mind, let's talk about fake Mandarin.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we're not even starting at Act 1. We're starting at the pinnacle of the movie.
Trevor Slattery, the best character in the movie, hands down.
No doubt.
Trevor Slattery. Oh man.
And Morris, of course. You cannot forget Morris.
Oh, Morris. Second best character, definitely.
Yes.
Two things. If I had known they were in the movie, I would have thought, oh god, oh great, it's the funny animal sidekick, and I love Ben Kingsley, but it's like, and then the joke character from Iron Man 3. It's like, oh boy, they're just putting this in here because of and then they actually did something with it. They did something. Right. They did something good with it. They got me. You got me.
He was so funny. I mean, I thought Awkwafina was very funny as Katie. I thought she was a good character. I liked her a lot, but once Ben Kingsley and Morris came in, it's like pretty much everything they said was hilarious, and like Awkwafina couldn't keep up almost. I mean, when it came to comedic timing, everything Ben Kingsley said was on point, and Morris was just adorable. I would totally buy a Morris plush if that comes out. Not even a plush guy, but oh my goodness, Morris was just so adorable, and I get it. It's great. It's awesome. So yeah, he was a highlight. And yeah, I'd even almost go to best character of the movie. He was so funny, and yeah, he was a pleasant surprise.
Yep. He's only even in the. Does he start in the second act, or maybe he's even in the third act?
He's
He like
pretty much
second
at the
act, I
very,
think.
Second act.
very kind of as the second act's about to wrap up. I'd say the third act starts when they get to Taolao or the Magic Village. So I'd
Taolao?
say he gets in there kind of under the radar, not under the radar, but just under the knife that he's in probably a little bit of the second act.
Yep.
Yeah, so they were great to the very end. That was solid. Have you guys seen Awkwafina? Anything else? The girl who played Shang-Chi's friend.
I think she's a great actress, but the comedy's kind of hit or miss for me because I saw, what is it? I was just flipping through one day and I think I saw her on I think it was like a Comedy Central show. I don't know. Of course, that's probably not her fault because it's like, actors get material or actors get scripts and they're like, they do the best with what they're given, but it's kind of like I could do without it. But she's a great actress. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what else I saw her in that wasn't comedy. She might have been comic relief in it, but my memory's failing me. But I liked her. She's good. They actually gave her something to do other than be funny and gave her own little her little character arc of her being her own worst enemy and actually being able to literally take the shot. If you had told me that Awkwafina would have saved the day in this thing, I'd have called you
right.
I'd have called you a lot of things we can't say on this thing, but
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was she was just the right amount of funny, I think, because there were she's one of those people who I see her in this. I also saw her in the film Crazy Rich Asians, where she played another similar character. She's like a friend to the protagonist, and she was very funny in that. And she's one of those people where I feel like if I saw her as a comedian, I wouldn't like her, but she does enough and is good with the character she's given, and she gives them enough comedy to make them work. That's something I thought was funny that another reviewer I was watching pointed out was I feel like what I mean by just the right amount of funny is there were some serious moments where somebody who would handle that character badly would have said something funny and kind of ruin the moment. But there were times where she could be very, very serious as well. And I think that just goes back to the chemistry between those two.
I kind of see that. And since we're in spoiler territory, like when Shang's sitting by the lake and she has like the line that's like your dad raised you to be an assassin. It's like it's not your fault or something like that. I think like you said, a worse actress or something would have really hammed up that. It's like, dude, your dad forced you to be an assassin. Oh man,
Yeah.
And it's I feel like that's handled pretty well. And I will say this, speaking of the undercutting thing, probably the reason I brought it down to a 7 instead of like an 8 or something was, I don't know. I feel like not from Awkwafina undercutting things, but it's almost like kind of the director or the writer or whoever it was had these scenes down. Like I'm thinking of the plane scene, and it's like, and then one of the executives or whatever came in, and it's like, all right, this is good. Why don't we add in that little cut there? It's like, I mean, maybe after we get through. No. Let's add in the little thing about the airplane food, and it's like even the characters are like, I get the whole point. It's like, oh, you're interrupting the moment, and it's like, I feel like even the audience is like, all right, yeah, you're interrupting the moment for haha funny. Can we move on?
Yeah, it's like the movie was winking at the audience, and the audience was like, yeah, we see what you're doing. Right. Could you not?
We don't
we understand what you're doing.
What you're doing doesn't
Stop.
mean it's funny.
Yeah, like there's time for jokes, but right now we just need, this is exposition time. We just need, there's a couple of moments like that where there were jokes that the Katie character, Awkwafina's character, made that didn't land, but it actually made sense for her character as
sure.
She's the kind of person who like she's compensating, or she's using this as a
defense mechanism.
Defense mechanism. That's the word. Thank you. She's using it as a defense mechanism, as the humor, and so not all of her jokes are landing, but it's because she herself is using comedy to protect herself from from reality a little bit.
Yeah.
And then
that makes sense.
Over time in the movie, as she is coming to accept her role, like what she's going through her own character arc, she doesn't make jokes as often. Like we said there's the time at the lake scene where she doesn't make a joke. She doesn't make jokes as often, and the points where she's funny hit better. Like they land better.
They fit her as a character instead of someone making the funny character say the funny thing.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
that actually worked well as a little sub arc, as a, I don't know if that's the B arc or the C arc or whatever you would put that at.
Yeah.
But that worked
W
well.
arc for whatever. I've already forgotten her name. Forget the joke.
Aquafina?
Forget it. No.
But yeah, no, I thought her arc. You definitely saw character change, and definitely you saw character development for her just throughout the time we got to see her. So I thought that was very cool. And yeah, I think that's just seen through. She does end up joking less and less, and she becomes, she matures a bit more and grows up, and has a better idea of who she is. I do think it's interesting that they pulled her in, both her and Shang-Chi, because it's like as great of a friend as she is to Shang-Chi, it's like I don't know why she would be an Avenger. She's just, I mean, she can shoot a bow and arrow pretty well. That's about it. I'm not sure why they brought her in as well. I'm very curious to see how she's going to fit into that role. But
I will say that is kind of she kind of did find her thing. And I mean, I know it's kind of like a plot thing. It's like, oh, what did they tell Wong? Did they tell her she shot the big CGI monster or something? But it's like, I don't know. I can kind of see why there'd be some merit to have like.
We need a new Hawkeye.
Now I'm trying to think if she's got like a comic book equivalent that they were trying to not shoehorn in, but it's sort of like, oh, she's actually blank.
Right.
Like,
okay, I mean, that's what my assumption was when they invited her in. I was like, okay, so the reason they're inviting her is there is a comic book character that she's supposed to take the role of. Maybe she has a character, or maybe there's a character that they're going to like adopt for her. So that was kind of my assumption, was that's why she's being brought in, because
new Hawkeye,
we
already have new Hawkeye.
We already have new Hawkeye.
Right.
Her skill is
new Hawkeye too.
She can also tell jokes, and she can also shoot a bow and arrow. The great character, like, is a friend for Shang-Chi, but like, I don't know what this is not an Avengers level threat.
Right. Exactly.
But so moving on from Katie to the core, because the core of the story is, I think, it's a family drama. There's the obviously there's the big CGI monster at the end, because it's a Marvel movie. Of course, there's a big CGI monster at the end. We know how these movies end.
Yeah, that's the other detracted thing I was talking about.
But the core of the movie is, I mean, yes, Shang-Chi is the title character, but the dad, it
almost felt more like his story.
Yeah, because all of the problems in the movie are caused by him. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a way that's like he's the evil person causing problems. I mean it in the way of he was living his life in a particular way, and so that had, because he made mistakes that caused problems that happens. He lives his life as this warlord for 1,000 years, and then he meets this girl, falls in love, and he is partially redeemed, kind of like he's this terrible person, but he loves her, and that redemptive love kind of makes him willing to attempt to be a good husband.
Yeah.
But then there's a kind of an interesting thing of like, because he did all these bad things in the past, that catches up with him later. And you can almost think of it in a weirdly symbolic way of like, he did bad things, she was redeeming him into a decent person, but her ability to redeem him wasn't strong enough. Like, it wasn't strong enough to get rid of all of the stuff that he had done bad. And that's why, like, when the gangsters show up and they kill her, she's not able to stop them, because she's not strong enough to defeat the monster that the Ten Rings guy had become. It's a kind of a weird symbolic way to look at it. But either way, because of his actions, that causes her death. And then because of his actions, he turns Shang-Chi into the assassin, which also pushes him away, and he, kind of excludes his daughter from things, and that turns her into the kind of person that she is, so that at the end of the movie, or not the end, the end of the first act, they're willing to team up to fight against him. And then you find out that the whole reason he's doing this is he's probably they don't explicitly say this, which I appreciate that they don't explicitly say this, but I think he experiences guilt over the fact that he knows that his wife died because of him, and then that's why the voice of the shadow monster was able to speak to him. I think the reason it was speaking to him is because he has the 10 rings and it knows that he can break it out of the magic prison or whatever. But the reason why it was willing
at that time they spoke to him.
Yeah, is because he's overwhelmed with the guilt of the fact that he knows that he is the reason that his wife is dead. And he's like, oh,
Right.
I got to do something about this. I wish I could make it right. And then the little voice comes, oh, I'm not actually dead, honey. You can come save me. Just break
I was
down the
about to say,
magic
before-
barrier to
Right.
the Shadow Realm, and you can free
Oh,
me.
God.
We actually got
Like-
that audio clip from the movie. You just
Yep.
heard it. That was it. You sound just like that.
Impeccable Chinese by Mr. Joe. Amazing.
He's been practicing, if you couldn't tell.
Oh man.
But yeah, I
But
think
yeah, no, I definitely think it was definitely because you see him, he tries to blame Shang-Chi that he should have been strong enough to save his mom when they came, but it was really just time with each decision that he makes, we just see every action that the Mandarin makes has consequences, and each of those consequences just turn into making another bad decision after another, unfortunately.
I will say this. I feel like he was coping without bringing his kids into it until he realized, I figure, he's lived 1,000 years. He's no stranger to grief or anything, but this got him so bad. He just kind of realized oh, I'll go back to what I always did, is mourn alone, even though he's because he's been alone for thousands of years. And then the minute he, loses someone that he's not alone, loses someone he's not alone with, loses essentially his family, is the minute he just starts that downward spiral of becoming. I'm trying to think, not well, I can't say it right, but this reminded me a lot of what is it, Dracula and Castlevania. Either you seen Castlevania?
Oh, yes.
The Castlevania series? This is literally
Yes.
Dracula from Castlevania.
This is exactly the same. That's exactly the same. Yeah, because Dracula is being redeemed by the human woman, and because obviously the 10 rings guy is human, but he has the 10 rings, so he's he's being redeemed by
force
this
for peace,
decent.
not exactly peace. This force for, I don't know. I was about to say, because it's not peace, because she murks a couple people very well. So
but
I guess
yeah.
this force for tranquility or something.
Force for the better side of humanity, maybe.
Yeah, let's go with that one.
And then the wife is directly killed because of an action of the husband, because of things the husband did. That's the reason why Dracula's wife in Castlevania is killed, is because she's the wife of Dracula. It's exact. And then the son has to come in and say, "No, Dad, you're wrong. This is not what Mom wants you to do."
And I will say this: I think it's funny because this is the same dynamic, and it's sort of I feel like they I'm funny we've gotten to this comparison, but it's I feel like they handled in since this is the same thing, they handled Dracula's side of this relationship compared to between Dracula and the Mandarin. I'm just gonna call him the Mandarin. Between Dracula and the Mandarin, they handled Dracula better, but between Alucard and Shang-Chi, I feel like they made. I feel like they handled Shang-Chi a little better, just by the fact that it's much more evident, other than the way he looks, that he is a combination of the good and bad of his mother and father, and they spell that out pretty. They spell that out pretty good with the dialogue, in the village with the aunts. I can't remember her her the actress's name, but I like her and some stuff. But it's they spell that out pretty well, and it's just oh yeah. But the good thing is, if this was any other Marvel movie, probably they would have just said that, and it's oh yeah, he's totally it. But they actually show it by the end in because the fighting's at the forefront. They showed it in his fighting style. Of course, at the very beginning, it's his he's trained by his dad, so his fighting style is that very brute force martial arts, just these brutal punches and kicks and slams and all that, as compared to what his aunt teaches him is this almost Tai Chi like form. And then he doesn't just use it to, beat his dad. It's like, oh, you know the secret techniques, so you could beat the Mandarin. It's like he takes that, and then he takes his dad's his. I'm trying to think. It's like he uses the rings to like fly off and stuff. It's like, what is it? It's like almost like his Hulk style, and he turns it into his own thing, which again ties back to the whole him becoming his own person, which is, I feel like, in the hands of just like, and not knocking any of the other Marvel directors or anything, but in the hands of a different director, I feel like that wouldn't have been able to get pulled off. Oh, we're quiet now. Okay.
No, it was a very good. I agree that they did a very good job of showing you the balance of yes, he was his father. His father was turning him into a copy of himself, right? That was basically what he's trying to do. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to be like you, but I am basically exactly like you because I don't know any other way to be. And then having him learn
Speaking of
another.
that, sorry to interrupt you there, but it's like, speaking of that, I just kind of thought it's kind of funny. It's like he struggles with most of the movie. It's like, I killed for him. I'm a killer like him, but I don't want to be. And then the minute his dad's assassins show up, it's like, I'm throwing you through a bus window going 80 miles an hour. Oh, I guess you're gonna fall off a building now. Okay, bye. And it's like, and then he's like struggling to kill. And I think in the credits they called like the elite blue assassin guys, like they called him the death dealer or something. It's like, I can't kill this guy, and like he's about to. It's like he feels like, oh, he's gonna finally give in and kill this guy, which would be impactful if he didn't murk 20 other people.
Right. I mean, it is in Marvel universe where like people can get thrown through bus windows and then walk it off the next day. Like that's just a normal thing.
It's true.
I mean, we saw in Black Widow, Black Widow fall out of a giant flying airship thing, fall to the ground, just like grabbing pieces of debris and survive.
Practically fell from orbit. It's like 2 minutes before he pulled the parachutes.
Like in Marvel Universe, the only time hitting someone actually has a chance to kill them is when you are like mentally intending to kill them, and so it actually has an effect on you. You never accidentally kill someone.
That's called plot armor, Joe. And I like
it. Yes, you're right.
That brings up another thing, but I'm not going to hijack this again. So go right ahead.
Let me see here. We were going back to the fighting scenes. So I mean, something I had mentioned earlier, the inconsistency. I mean, I in particular love those two fighting scenes we get first on the bus, and then later at his sister's, at Shang-Chi's sister's, like battle royale place or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
But
Fight Club.
Yeah, her Fight Club.
Asian Fight Club.
Asian Fight Club. So those two fight scenes there, which I thought were excellent. Long takes and all that. And then we just get the very much at the final battle scene, which is just your typical big CGI fest, which was fine because we had some good character moments.
Fight between Shang and the Mandarin.
Right.
That was a good fight. Okay. The fight, the father-son fight was excellent because it had the CGI stuff, or it had the the special effects stuff in there, but I thought because it was emotionally impactful, so it didn't bother me. But then we have the giant dragon versus the giant water dragon versus basically
Chinese dragon versus Western dragon, Eastern versus Western dragon.
I was trying to think of what's the dragon in Godzilla? What's the
Ghidorah.
Ghidorah, yeah, it's basically a Chinese dragon versus Ghidorah.
Yeah, there you go.
When we do the Godzilla episode, I'm about to drop so many knowledge points.
Hey, if you know your kaiju.
Oh man, that's the good stuff. But I will say this, as I've said, I will say this a lot of times, I realize. But it's like, as cliched as the big CGI monster fight is, I do think they were able to again, with that director or that writer or whoever, they were able to fish some good stuff out of it, because the Chinese guardian dragon is the epitome of their Tai Chi like style, and then the big demon dragons, the big brute, that's like the Mandarin. So they were able to pull out a little thematic thing there, which I'll give them points for. It's better than just they're both punching each other or whatever.
Yeah, but I would have almost even taken something like, they just
don't need them, that sort of thing.
or not even. I mean, maybe, but it was inconsistent with the other fights. It wasn't like the others. Whereas even something like Black Widow, it's like all the fights were pretty much on the same pace when it comes to how the stakes and all of that. They were all very similar. They were all kind of shot very similar. Whereas you get these two fights, which are both very similar and very cool, and you almost would expect something like that as the final boss fight, but it's completely different. And so that inconsistency was a little disappointing, because I would have loved to see something almost on the same level as, like, Neo fighting a bunch of the Smiths in the Matrix or something like that. It's where we get, like, Shang-Chi. He does get the rings from the Mandarin, but he also, there's a bunch of these other warriors, 10 rings, agents coming after him, and it's him versus all of them or something on that level, and shot the same way as the others had been. So that would have been, I wish we had that, but
I think, well, the problem is, I think the problem is we have the video game bonus boss fight problem, which is, if you're playing a video game and you find out, like, here's the final boss, but then there's a secret final boss that you can only fight if you beat the final boss in a particular way, you know that you have to do it that particular way so you can get that bonus fight. And you'll be disappointed if you don't actually get that bonus fight. Even if the bonus fight isn't that good, even if the bonus fight isn't anything like the rest of the game, the fact that the bonus fight exists means we have to have the payoff. So the fact that they set up earlier in the movie that there is this giant dragon that's like the shadow monster, or the one that devours or something, I can't remember what they call it. They have some some name like that.
I think it's like the creature of the darkness or something like that.
Something like that.
The Dark Devourer or something.
Yeah.
The fact that they set up
Double
the
D
fact
for my
that, the fact that they set up that there's this big shadow monster, you know that they have to fight it, right? Because if they don't, if Shang-Chi is able to stop his father before the monster is released and it doesn't get out and we don't have that fight, there's like a setup, and it's disappointing. There's a Chekhov's gun that didn't fire of this monster was set up, and we don't actually get to see it. And you're like, well, but the monster, big scary. You're supposed to fight the big scary monster.
Monster.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Ragnarok subverted that, because, like, they were trying to set up the monster on purpose but you can't pull that trick twice in the same way. So I think the only way you could have gotten away from having that is you have to not include the backstory of the creature at all. Because if you include the backstory of the creature at all, that's telegraphing this is the thing that we're going to fight at the end. And so
I agree. Yeah. I think
even if it did feel tacked on, I kind of agree with you. But I kind of think the same thing happened with Doctor Strange. It's like, they built up Dormammu. They built up that he can destroy the world. And it's like, oh, well, Doctor Strange is going to fight him and save the world at the end. Well, he didn't fight him.
That's a very Doctor Strange thing, right? Like that's a very the way that Doctor Strange in the comics beats most of his villains isn't just, I'm going to punch you to death with magic. It's like there's a character who, I don't know, he can teleport or something that Doctor Strange has to beat, and so the way he defeats him is he puts him in another dimension, but not like a parallel universe. He puts them in, like, the second dimension or the 2.5 dimension or something like that. It's like something weird. So they've got, like, in a way that completely subverts the person's powers. So that's a very Doctor Strange way of beating the final boss.
But
there was never a point in that battle where I was like, oh, they're going to lose someone important. Like,
no.
the battle between father and son actually matters because you're emotionally invested in those two characters.
Yeah.
And you know that Shang-Chi, he didn't want to face his father at all. He got to the point where, like, I have to kill my dad. And then he realized, no, I am the product of my father and my mother. I don't want to kill my father. I want to reason with him. And he's like, so there's the emotional impact of he is going to fight his father as much as he has to stop him from doing something stupid, but isn't going to kill him. And
that's just like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Same idea.
And again, going back to Dracula and Alucard, that's exactly that's kind of exactly what happens too. But I will say, again, it's sort of like that was there, and at the final moment, it's almost like they didn't want to make the choice. Like, as Shang does make the choice. He throws down the rings. He's not going to kill his father, but his dad's not going to stop either. So it's almost like oh man, we can't let them make this choice. Send in the big demon thing to suck his soul out. Okay, Shang wins. Okay, fight this guy now. It's like it's not a cop out, because in the end we got the little resolution where he decided not to kill his dad. But it's a little bit like, this isn't closure. This is someone else deciding the game.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
What was it? I mean, this is a totally different side note, but I thought this was interesting. There were some points, sort of going back to Awkwafina's character, Katie. I feel like there were some times where she did understand when people were speaking in Chinese, and other times where she couldn't. Am I the only one who sort of got that?
I actually think it was, and at first I thought so too, but I think it's the fact that she can understand it, but she can't speak it too well.
Yeah,
Which at the club, she's like, "Yeah, my Chinese is a little rusty," and it's like, "Oh yeah, I can speak ABC too." That was a good joke. I mean, that was a good joke. Yeah. That guy is like, "I speak ABC too." So, I don't know. That caught me off guard in terms of being good. But it's like, and I'm guessing the Magic Village is like the basis for Chinese culture, so they speak Chinese. It is kind of one of those things where the more you think of it, it's like, well, hold on a second.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just something I wasn't sure. There were some times where, like, her family members were speaking in Chinese and she understood it, and then like she got to that village and they were saying things and like she didn't get it. But I'm like, I thought they were both speaking Chinese. I thought that was interesting, but it might just be they're speaking different types of Chinese, maybe.
Well, there is Mandarin and Cantonese,
coming
which are
from
different.
Three very American individuals.
Yeah,
we do not know Chinese. So.
Three people who have never,
who are clearly experts on this.
Yeah, obviously. There's another little nitpicky thing I wanted to mention. There's a problem I had with. I like the dad's character overall. I do not believe that he spent 1,000 years as the leader of a secret organization, because he is incredibly impulsive. Like the character is like he finds out about the village of Tai Lao, I think is what it's called. He finds out that the magic village exists, and then he turns to his lieutenant and is like, "I need to go now. I want to go there now. We're dropping everything and we're going to go here. And I don't care the fact that we're going to lose a bunch of people in the magic forest. We're going right now." And
I just think at that point he's cocky. I'm not saying he's always been like that, but I feel like it's just like at this point he's considering how many years he's been at this and how many years he's flawlessly been able to take out civilization after civilization and rule. He's like, you know what, just heck with it, enough with these precautions. It's like, I have the 10 rings, I'll be fine, let's go.
That's the other thing he says. What is it, the wife's narrating at this point, I think, and he's like, oh, he had nothing left to conquer. It's like that sort of thing. First of all, it's like, I get it, shadowy organization that runs everything, but like, I mean, somebody's got to know he's doing this, right? Especially when we're in like the big interconnected. This is in like '96 when he's like stopped conquering stuff, and it's like, I think Shield was the thing.
Yeah, Shield was definitely a thing,
right?
Like, was Hydra aware of them? Like, Hydra was like, is that a rival shadow organization?
It's like, yeah, there's this immortal that's been, completely bodying half the world, but we're gonna let him do his own thing. It's fine.
Yeah, did Agent Coulson walk in and say, "Hey, Director Fury, we keep finding images of the same person that shows up throughout history. He looks exactly identical, and he keeps like taking over different places. Do we need to be worried about this? No, we need to worry about these other things going on."
I've got an initiative that needs drafted.
I've got an initiative that needs to be avenged.
He's like, okay, but there was an idea. It's like, oh, okay.
There he goes.
Yeah.
All right, Director Fury, let's get to your pills. There was an idea.
There was an idea. Oh man. Yeah.
There was one thing I looked at. I was looking at like a bunch of Easter eggs and stuff. Something I did not realize, which I think was just cool, that all these years later they finally tied it back. In obviously Iron Man 3, we got the fake Mandarin and all that, and they mentioned he used the front as Mandarin, which we later find out that's we actually finally meet the real Mandarin. The 10 Rings organization are actually the same organization that captures Tony in the first Iron Man film. And we actually see behind him, we see the 10 ring symbol, which I thought was very cool. And so it's funny they finally got that tied back around. So
now I think I saw something about this in like was either a behind the scenes interview or it's like, someone was talking to the director, whatever. But the Mandarin, probably this iteration of the Mandarin, like the probably not the Immortal Warlord, but the wielder of the Ten Rings, was originally supposed to be like the overarching bad guy of Iron Man's trilogy. And it's like, the Ten Rings capture him. And then it's like that was kind of supposed to be the background. And then 2 was supposed to expand upon that. Maybe he's the one who sent Whiplash or something, but they wound up scrapping it. And then, they're like, yeah, but we want to have the Mandarin in there. He's a big Iron Man villain. And it's like, all right, throw in Ben Kingsley, fake Mandarin. It's like,
Yeah.
I wonder how that would have turned out. Maybe the thing is, if that had panned out, we wouldn't have gotten this good portrayal. So I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, because the problem is then we don't get, because if Iron Man's trilogy ends with him not defeating the Mandarin, you're like, well, that's unsatisfying. But then you can't have him to set up for Shang-Chi.
Right.
So it's a which was a good movie, and the Shang-Chi movie is better than certainly Iron Man 2. Maybe better than Iron Man 3. Not that Iron Man 3 is bad, just saying,
second hot take of the session.
No, Iron Man 3 is good. I enjoy Iron Man 3, but
I do as well.
think this one was better than this. Shang-Chi was better.
People of the mob, that thing. Yeah, I think it has something to do with Shane Black, which he's not the.
I think it has more to do with, I think more people felt cheated by the fake Mandarin, I think is what more people didn't like. Whereas, some people think it's ingenious. Other people, like more of your Marvel fans who at least know the name of the Mandarin think they were cheated and think it was lame. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really where it gets divisive. But I personally love seeing Tony more out of the costume. And I mean, one of my favorite scenes in that movie is, just to go on an Iron Man 3 tangent real quick, is when you have the scene where he goes into the store and sets up all these traps and all that without his Iron Man costume. It's like, yeah, believe it or not, Tony Stark is super smart guy, and he doesn't need a costume to get things done. So I thought that was very cool and a fun reminder that, Tony Stark's a boss.
But gentlemen, given the minimal prep time, could he beat Kevin McAllister from Home Alone?
Tony Stark.
Both of them given limited prep time.
Home Alone, an Iron Man story.
Oh God! Don't give them any ideas.
That sounds hilarious. But...
They have to pay us to use that title now.
Sure they do. Actually, so I do think it would have been interesting if they would wanted to do something like this. If they had the fake Mandarin as Iron Man 2's villain, where like the actual possessor of the Ten Rings sent this guy out to be a frontman, and then at the end of the trilogy, he actually confronts the person who's been behind this the whole time. That would have worked pretty well. But then again, like we don't get to see Shang-Chi fight his dad in a very emotional scene that is somewhat undercut by the fact that it doesn't end properly because he has his soul so sucked up by a dragon. But it's okay.
Right, and we wouldn't have gotten fake Mandarin either being the best character in this movie.
That's true.
Yes, exactly.
Which would have been a loss. So ultimately, what we've learned today is that it's okay to have fake Mandarin as long as he's played by Ben Kingsley and you get to see him in Shang-Chi.
Right.
I play both sides, so I always come out on top.
Exactly.
21. And actually, Disney all the time.
Even though it was a small, very small part, I thought it was fun to see Abomination back. I thought that was a nice touch, just seeing him, because it's been years. That was pretty cool. And he looked more like his character in the comics, because he had the ears back, so that was very cool. I liked Abomination a lot growing up. I thought he was a very cool villain, so seeing him look slightly more like his original character I thought was cool. And again, Wong is always a win, especially them, doing karaoke at the end was amazing.
That was excellent.
that also kind of brings up, it's like, when did Wong? It's like Wong's kind of been the voice of reason, sort of like, I mean, he's had his every now and again. It's like, what is it in Infinity War? He's like, oh yeah, I'll take a sandwich, but do you take yen or something like that? It's like he's had his little thing, but it's like it's one thing to be like that, and then it's another thing to participate in an underground fight ring with a mutated literal abomination.
I've heard a lot of people saying
like
theories
for rigged fight money. It's like it's that's a lot. Yeah. I don't mind it, but that's a big jump.
Yeah.
You guys may have heard this, but I heard that some people had a theory that, like in the No Way Home trailer, when you have Peter walk in to meet Doctor Strange in the Sanctum Sanctorum, that we see Wong leaving through a portal that he's going to a fight ring to fight Abomination, possibly that same fight or something different. But that was one theory people had.
Huh. Although they don't know how that works out time-wise, because there was several we have several days after that fight in the movie where presumably at least the leader of the Ten Rings would know that weird stuff is happening in New York that
to be
maybe we
fair,
should be concerned with.
I guess at this point he wouldn't care, since he's like, he has the biggest fish to fry. He's going to go save his wife. He's like, yeah, listen, if all of you die, but I get my wife, I don't really care. Let's just go.
Now, I think
almost happens.
Yeah, I do think it's possible that the No Way Home Wong exit is him going to go do something with Abomination again. Like that's what they're. Like he's going to train him more or whatever is going on there, which we don't know exactly what's happening.
Wong's got his own arc. He's short on cash in the one movie, so he starts going to the fight ring.
That's it.
Cash.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly. He's like, oh,
Kevin
I'm the serious.
You madman.
Yes.
Yeah. Everything's planned. It's all connected.
Wong's biggest weakness: gambling.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's his love of sandwiches that he doesn't have enough money to pay for.
So he's indebted to sandwich shops.
Yes. It's like 100 sandwich shops
and then
across
it
the world.
To Spider-Man 1.
Yes.
They blew up the sandwich shop. It took all I had not to intervene myself.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to mention. Oh, I thought it was interesting. I had a thought or two about this, but I wasn't sure what you guys had thought. I thought it was interesting. The whole reason he makes the connection between their pendants and putting those in the eyes of the dragon and seeing that map was because he feels like his wife is calling to them. And he feels like his wife's calling for him to go to Tai Lao and free her. But since she wasn't, I'm curious why the map was there. The only reason I can think is that she eventually wanted her kids to go to her village.
That's probably it.
I wasn't sure if you guys had thought about that. It was just like, because I'm thinking outside of the context of his wife still being alive, it didn't make a lot of sense for them to just have the pendants and for him to think, because within that context, that being a clue makes sense. But if not, that's the only other explanation I can come up with.
Brings up an interesting question, because it makes perfect sense that the mom has these pendants and she gave them to her kids, maybe thinking they go back and go spend some time with their aunt, or maybe just saying like, this is a piece of my home that I brought with me and I want to share it with you. Either one of those works. The question that I have then is, how intelligent is the evil dragon? Because the evil dragon, like when we actually see it fighting, it doesn't have any strategy. It's just suck souls and kill people.
It's like a Dementor, basically.
He's the brute force end of the spectrum. So that's a good point, actually.
He's apparently smart enough that he can plant specific suggestions in people's heads. First of all, he knows that the pendants exist. He knows that they make a map, and he knows that he can convince, and he knows who has them, so that he can convince the dad to go and steal them, so that he can go and get into the village, so that he will go and free the dragon. So he's that intelligent, or she or it or whatever, I don't know what this thing is. It's simultaneously smart enough to do all of that planning and to be putting these suggestions in people's heads and manipulating them, but also it's this like dumb screaming monster thing that just tears people apart.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was sort of like he figured it out from. I mean, his wife might have told him, it's like, oh yeah, we can go back one day, and he's like, I wonder how. And then I don't know, maybe she did show him the map thing, and he's just like, oh, okay. And then she gave the pendants to the kids, and he just didn't really. I don't know.
So you're saying the dragon was just finding people to plant suggestions in, and the dad came up with the pendant thing himself?
Maybe. I think the dragon was like his whole mind thing was sort of like, oh, come free me. And it's like, I know you got the 10 rings. I know you got the resources, or somehow figure it out yourself and come free me. I don't know.
That was kind of my assumption. It's
one of those other things where scrutiny makes it a little less enjoyable, I guess. Which I don't know. A cool water trick. Go.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. Look at it.
Yeah, so that was, that again, that's a pretty minor thing, but I'm kind of on the same side as Joseph with that, where it's like I'm pretty sure all the dragon did was just be like, "Hey, come free me." Obviously because he knew the Ten Rings were powerful enough, because others, like the aunt or somebody had said, others have tried and failed to free the dragon, but the dragon apparently knew that the Ten Rings were powerful enough. I've heard rumors that the reason they knew that is because maybe they even mentioned it in the history. Do you remember when they're talking about the history, do they mention anything about the Ten Rings, or just do they talk about the bad guys in that?
The fact that I thought honestly, I thought when they were giving the whole exposition spiel, it was sort of like, oh yes, and then a great warrior wielding the 10 rings came, and it's like, oh, but then it's just like, oh yeah, the dragon helped us and gave us the scales, and it was sort of like, so where did the 10 rings come up?
I think that's something they're going to say.
I feel like
I think that's the point
was in the film, and then. Well, I mean, I don't think they replaced. Oh, the 10 rings were the thing that stopped the thing with the dragon. No, I don't think that. But I think it was like they could have included that in there, but to tease intrigue and mystery, they threw it in as like, oh, we don't know what these are. They're sending off a beacon now in like the post-credit scene. It's sort of like. Maybe these magical artifacts are going to be the new Infinity Stones, which I really hope they don't do, because
it's easy at this point.
We've had our MacGuffin chasers.
My thought is, I was with you where I was fully expecting them to say that a hero showed up, he used the rings, and that's the reason why the rings can free the evil monster is because they were used to defeat it. And then when they didn't do it, I was like, okay, so what's going on with these rings? Because they very pointedly didn't have that connection made. So I think my suspicion is that it's first of all, they're like, oh, we can make this a thing where we can tag it in and have it be intrigue, like you said. But my question is I think it's going to be something like the Silver Surfer for Galactus, or it's going to be something like that for some Marvel villain, where this is a beacon that pings to a particular evil entity, and because the correct person has the rings now, the evil entity's like, now is the time when I do my thing. For whatever it is, I don't know who it is. I don't know who that is in the Marvel universe.
For all you listening, actually listening to the podcast now, you heard it here first. Mephisto confirmed Phase 4.
Mephisto. Oh my gosh, let it die.
Yeah, that's right.
Let
Mephisto
it die.
Confirmed. You heard it here first.
I've heard rumors.
I do think it is a magical threat, though. If we're since we are going into not like quantum physics magic, we're going into actual magic. I feel like that's the thing. I don't know why. There's a ton of stuff they can pull out for this. But
I've heard. Who was it? I've heard people talking about Kang.
Set up, even if it meant. Oh well, yeah. Kang's gonna be
because
Kang's
now
going to be the big thing for.
Kang's going to be the big thing of Phase 4. But is he going to be the big? But their 10 rings might be setting up the next triple arc. Right, like Kang is going to be the big guy of Phase 4, but Thanos was the big guy of Phase 1, 2, and 3. Right,
of the Infinity Saga. Yeah,
of the Infinity Saga. So there's this next bigger arc with a new galactic level or universal level threat, other than Thanos, and the rings are going to be connected to that. Just in the same way that the Tesseract, yes, that connected to Loki specifically, but it also was setting up the fact that Thanos wants all of the Infinity Stones. I think that the 10 rings might be both. It might have.
Yeah, that's definitely possible.
Because this is the first movie of Phase 4 that isn't a prequel, so kind of the first movie of Phase 4.
Yeah,
was Far From Home? Is that not Far From Home?
No.
Far From Home is
the
a
last
tag
film.
At the end of Phase 3.
Yeah. It's the last official film of the Infinity Saga, I believe.
Yeah, because it's the entire movie is Peter dealing with the fact that Tony is dead.
Yep.
Which is the MCU dealing with the fact that Tony is dead through the medium of Peter.
Right.
Sorry, I just had to throw that one in there.
What'd you say?
Little Iron Man Jr. You
Yeah.
see the thing where it's like.
Kind of.
Yeah, little Gubby Jr. Oh God.
Oh no.
Yeah, you know.
Oh.
Old Toby Spider-Man. Forget I said anything. I'm just gonna go fix the roof.
I feel like there was another funny Easter egg I heard. First off, another one of the funniest scenes was when you have the vlogger on the bus That was
Oh,
great.
yeah, yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was funny. Something I realized, or I looked up, was that that vlogger, he also has a brief cameo in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where Spider-Man's going around doing his thing, and apparently he's a hot dog salesman, and he shouts up, he like says, "Hey, Spider-Man," and then he's just like do a flip or something.
Oh, that's the same
to him.
guy?
That's the
Same
guy.
guy. It's the
Oh,
same
man.
guy.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's kind of funny.
It's all connected.
It's all
I'm gonna get
It
my
really
board,
is,
my
though.
red yarn.
You get the red yarn, get the whiteboard out, or the
Jack,
tack
I'm
board
gonna
out.
destroy your kitchen to make my board.
Sweet. I feel like we've pretty much covered everything. Is there anything
Kind
else
of.
you guys wanted to mention before you wrap this thing up?
There is one more thing. It's just going back to the Mandarin's character in himself. Well, actually, kind of all the martial artist characters. They're not just characterized by their words and like their decisions and all, which is a good way to do it. Like just and of course we talked about how Shang is a combination of his father and his mother in spirit and fighting and stuff like that. But like the father-son fight in particular, Mandarin shows like they characterize the Mandarin a lot because I noticed he doesn't punch Shang until the end of the fight. He punches Shang like full force with like his one arm of rings and sends him into the lake. But until then, he's striking with his forearms. He's kicking him. He's hitting him with his elbows. He's like hitting him like a little bit to the side and stuff. He doesn't want to take him down. He's just kind of on the defensive. And the minute Shang brings up like the fact that his mother would be disappointed in him, which in the end is probably true. He ends the fight.
Yeah,
and I thought that was so good that made the the game end from the weird demon thing just even more of a cop out to me.
Although we did get a great scene with what was it? Where you have Ben Kingsley lying on the ground. I knew he was acting. I saw that a mile away.
Yeah, that was obvious.
But it was still so funny. And then you have he gets Morris to do the same thing. It's awesome.
Yeah. Now that is good. I will say it's like the fact that we have it is not like it's not the worst thing of the movie, but it's like it could have been handled a little better. They could have thrown that little thing in just fine. Oh yeah, that brings up another thing. It's like another nitpick, but it's like all the assassins. It's like they train with these weapons. They're the deadliest fighting force of this secret organization, and they use stun batons. It's like the first time it happens, they're trying to take Shang and his sister and all that, but then when they go to raise a village to the ground, they bring the stun batons.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It was a little weird.
Yeah, but again, that's a nitpick. It's It didn't do that much.
That actually might make sense.
But
that actually might make sense if you think about it as the dad has a little bit remorse for the fact that this is his wife's village, and he knows that his wife wouldn't want him to kill all of the people in her village, just free her from being trapped, assuming that was actually what was happening. Yeah. And so it actually would make sense for them to use the stun batons as like, we're going to take these people down, so we stop them, we free my wife, and then when she gets out and she is in my protection, then we can just let these people go, and like they'll be under my control now, but I don't need to kill them for that. And I wouldn't want to kill them because these are my wife's relatives. That actually makes a little more sense.
I think that shines a light a little more on the Mandarin's humanity as well. So.
Yeah, that too. I didn't think about that. The fact that he said burn it to the ground and all, I feel like that was now that I think about it a little more just then, that was probably some showmanship, some bravado for his lieutenant. Like, was it Razor Fist? It's like, yeah, we'll get what we want. We'll burn the thing to the ground. And he's just sort of like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure we will. And because it's sort of like, I keep going back to Castlevania, but it's like the one thing where Joe knows what I'm talking about, but Dracula's sitting in his chambers. He's just drained. He's defeated because, he's going to destroy humanity, but he's already dead because his wife's dead. He's miserable, but he puts on a show of we're gonna be the bad guys. We're going to commit this ultimate evil, because that's what the Mandarin would do, not Tan Wee would do, or whatever his name was. And that's what Dracula
Win Wu, I think.
Not the person, the monster would. Which that makes more sense now.
I guess I need to watch Castlevania now.
Would definitely recommend Castlevania. Very good TV, or it's a Netflix original animated series, but it's definitely very good.
Okay, cool.
And we can do an episode on that.
Actually,
I need to watch
I've unfortunately turned this into a mini episode on it. I didn't expect I had one note. I got a thing on iPhone Notes, the best thing for writing apologies, on like the little connection between Castlevania's like theme, father and son theme, and Shang-Chi's, and I've gone and rambled about it.
Now, I didn't even catch that connection, but you are absolutely right. It is a very interesting parallel there. Those are very different, or excuse me, very similar stories.
It's probably because I watch too much everything.
Well,
But yeah.
I think there was one more thing. Oh yeah, there's another little nitpick. Because they had shown a couple scenes with that guy with the mask and all that, who'd been training him, was meeting him. I think his name in the comics is Death Dealer.
Yep.
But the guy with the mask, I feel like we were going to get a fight with him in Shang-Chi. They were almost setting us up for that, and then he just get his soul sucked, and that's it.
It's to establish the threat, not subvert expectations. Of course not. We're not going to do that. Why would we want to do that?
So that was a little disappointing, but that was, whatever. Still, overall, definitely a breath of fresh air for Marvel films. Not that any of the others have been bad, but this was just slightly above your average Marvel film, and I appreciated that.
It felt like, and I said this in my open thing, but it felt like its own movie that just happened to be set in the Marvel universe, and it was a good movie at that. And yes,
it was. Yeah, well, unless you guys have anything else you wanted to point out, I feel like we can wrap this up now.
No, I think that's good for me.
Sweet. Yeah.
All right. If you've been listening the whole time, good job. If not, you can stop.
We're proud of you. We appreciate you. We'll do our best to come out with another episode
Make sure
soon.
to send all your fan mail to Jack's address, which I'm going to read off right now.
Please don't. We're not there yet.
Address.
No.
1111111 Street.
There you have it, folks.
Oh God.
So we're gonna try and come out with another episode soon. Probably try to do this weekly or every other week. Hope you've all had as much fun listening as we did recording this, and we'll do our best to come out with another episode soon.
I mean, I hope they had more fun, because I'm just sitting here.
You're so bored right now, Joseph. You didn't even have fun.
I'm just
You're
in
just
the
bored
kitchen.
out of your mind.
I've rearranged all of your utensils. It's just been awful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've been meaning to do that, so thank you for doing that for me. Alrighty. Well, again, it's been fun, and we hope to record another episode soon.